Or not, I will be back, Mr. Barnbrook, because this is my hometown, all right? I want...
Your hometown, eh, Billy? Well, golly, let's look at some of these houses that are your hometown and perhaps where you live. Wow, that's not really very nice, is it? Good grief, look at this one. Holy mackerel. Stone the crows, mate. I'm starting to feel sorry for you, Billy. I'm going to start calling you Billy the Battler. Yeah, that's the most appropriate name for you, isn't it? Breaking news just in. Billy the Battler poking his finger into the chest of that fascist, racist Richard Barnbrook. Billy the Battler, whose hometown is Barking and Dagenham. Billy the Battler now lives here. What a run-down, dilapidated shack that is, Billy. I'm so glad to see that you are living in the same kind of conditions that the people who you identify with in Barking and Dagenham also live. You know, I must be just one of those dumb Australians who doesn't know very much, but forgive me for being a little bit presumptuous here, but I thought that vast mansions and estates like the one that Billy lives in now were most closely connected to capitalism.
The answer is to build more council houses, is to bring more jobs in, and bring back democratic socialism.
And here's Billy ranting at Richard Barnbrook, poking his finger into Richard's chest saying, democratic socialism is the answer. Billy, come on, mate. Come on, Billy. Let's get real here. Democratic socialism? I don't think that's the kind of lifestyle you're living in at the moment, mate. Well, there we have it. Straight from the mouth of Billy the Battler. More council housing. More jobs. Democratic socialism. That's what we need. Oh, it's so simple, Billy, isn't it, when you paint with broad brushstrokes like that? Didn't Karl Marx say, though, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need? I'm just wondering, Billy, when you're going to chalk up the next date, when you're going to divvy up your huge mansion and property, start spreading the wealth around the battling residents of Barking and Dagenham. That's what I'd like to know. And of course, I might add here that Margaret Hodge is the richest woman in the Labor Party with, what is it, £50 million of personal fortune. I'm wondering when her democratic socialism is going to take effect too. And I wonder how many beautiful houses, or even modest houses of a comfortable nature, you could build with £50 million. I'd say quite a few. Ah yes, democratic socialism, Margaret Hodge, Billy the Battler. That's what we need. So simple. Council housing. More jobs. Yep, more jobs will come. Democratic socialism. Only one problem. Garbage in, garbage out. If you run the economy as though you had an eternal overdraft, gradually the money and the debt builds up. What do you owe? You can't keep on building stuff with money that you borrow, because eventually you've got to pay it back. And you've got to pay interest too. Welcome to Greece. Let's have a look at some diagrams now to illustrate economic activity. The first one here shows income equaling expenses. This is a break-even situation. Nothing spare, nothing left over, nothing owed. The next one shows where we have more income than we have expenses. We've got disposable income. We can buy stuff. Yay. The next one is where our expenses are greater than our income. Now this is the situation at the moment in Barking and Dagenham. There's very little economic activity of an original nature. In other words, we're not producing income from goods that we make and send out of the country. Extending this across to other regions, which is pretty much the case, if a government spends more than it brings in taxation, etc., then we're going to have a situation where the national debt increases. Now, a way to offset this, of course, is by having the beauty of a natural resource. North Sea oil, that's the answer. Yeah. All these regions around the country are spending more than they earn, but one massive natural resource can offset all of those over expenditures until, of course, it runs out. And at the moment, North Sea oil has been exploited to the level of about 70%. So you've got about 30% left before all those red slabs of debt stop being made up for by the green of the natural resource in the North Sea oil. Now we come to the really fun part. Remember this? Ford Dagenham. A huge motor car assembly plant employing 50,000 workers. Now, in the issue 243 of the Socialist Review, we find the following. The motor industry was the economy's engines of growth and the barometer of its health, accounting in the early 70s for 11% of British industrial production. But by then, the motor industry in the US and Europe was operating at only 3/4 of its capacity. The result was more intensive competition between giant firms. British employers launched an offensive aimed at driving down wages, but also at restricting workers' right to strike. The great upturn in class struggle between 67 and 74 was, in essence, the British workers' resistance to this assault. Now, let's do some analysis. This is the socialist worldview. This is the view of Labour, and this is the view of the people in the unions who supposedly represent your interests. Sorry. The first thing we notice is that the British motor industry was 11% of the British industrial production. 11%. That's a hell of a big swag. But then we find point 2. But by then, the motor industry in the US and Europe were only operating at 3/4 of their capacity. So what happens? The result was more intensive competition. Competition. That's that thing where you and your rival seek to reduce your expenses, to improve your product pricing, and to make it more attractive so people will buy it. So what happened? Well, gee golly gosh, the British employers launched an offensive. Well, actually, the offensive is not right. That's the socialist spin word. That's the class struggle word. What it really was a campaign to lower costs. Was this to lower costs so that the fat cat executives could get more money and have bigger bonuses and that sort of thing? Well, I'm sure that bonuses for a successful business venture would be a part of everything. I don't know how much of a part. I really don't know. But what I do know is this, that those people responsible for those managing these industries have to make the industry run competitively. Because if they don't, the people over the sea, over the river, over the country, over the border, they will. And when they do, you'll find both of those products, your product and the product coming from their factory, sitting side by side in a town in two different showrooms. And of course, people are going to say, well, gee, that one from England's a bit more expensive. I think I'll go for the one made in USA or the one made in Europe. And lo and behold, because of all the wonderful increases in wages and improvements in conditions that your communist unionist guys have been promising you, because of all those, the end price of the product is higher and nobody buys the product. But hey, you're okay. You've got a lot of wages, haven't you? You've got good conditions and you've got good pay. But the people aren't buying the product. That's it. Silence. It's game over. If people aren't buying your product, for what reason do you work? There's no reason to work. And then we find the very next thing here is the great upturn in class struggle. The old communist spin again. Between 67 and 74 resulted in a shutdown or a strike in 1971 that shut up the Ford assembly plant for 3 months. So it was already teetering on the verge of collapse through non-competitiveness. And what's the communist answer? Let's ask for more money, just like the British Airlines strike at the moment. So there you go. And of course, what happened? They shut the plant down. No more competitiveness, no more business, no more jobs. So all of those improvements in conditions, in pay, did squat. All they did is resulted in you blokes in Barking and Dagenham, 48,000 of you sitting around doing nothing, wondering what the future's going to mean, while the 2,000 remain a building engines. Thank you, democratic socialism.